Everybody moving slow.
No, that's just you.
Well, it's just me. The camera took a long time to come back on. Yeah. What up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Water for the Coaches. The word simply refreshing. I'm your facilitator, host Jared, and with us, of course, we have our regular crew, Lauren, who's in North Carolina, Jerome, who's in Trinidad and Tobago, Teresa, who's in the DMV, and Kenrick, I think he's somewhere in Europe, somewhere. Don't put the business on blast, but he's not local. He's far away. But we still coming together on the virtual couch to top it up and talk about Jeremiah, Luke, and Kenrick say the book of Psalm. I think there's a little bit of Ezekiel in there, Ezekiel and Jeremiah in there, from Daniel, because they all overlap in time
Yeah,
period.
they kind of all went back and forth.
Yeah, so they all. My sound changed. It sounds muffled.
It sounded like your
Yeah.
shirt was in the way, but you good money now.
Okay. Yeah. So one of those things that's happening right now is I am doing this and then use the same machine um, to look at the stream on YouTube and Facebook. So it may have dipped the service there just now once we went live. But I'm glad it's better. Y'all can hear me better now.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. 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 So Kenrick, I'm gonna come to you, but I want to ask this question about Jeremiah 26, 2-3 first, since I have the bishop here to lead me and guide me
Huh.
with the Spirit's help into all truth, right?
You s-
Jeremiah
you said
26 what?
Jeremiah.
Jeremiah 26 verses 2 and 3. And we don't have Courtney to read for us today. So Bishop, if you would, you can read and then we will
All right. You said 2 and 3. Hold on, I only got 3.
Jeremiah 26, 2-3.
Do, 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 do.
So it triggered in me because last week we had a conversation about freedom of choice and free will and the relationship therewith and therein. When I read this, it reminded me of that. So you know,
All right. I'm doing ESV.
that's all right.
Thus saith the Lord, stand in the court of the Lord's house and speak to all the cities of Judah that come to worship in the house of the Lord. All the words that I command you to speak to them. Do not hold back a word. It may be they will listen and everyone turn from his evil way, that I may relent of the disaster that I intend to do to them because of their evil deeds.
hmm So the question that I had was, if God is omniscient and all-knowing, why would He use words like perhaps and hope? Why bother to send warnings? You know what the people gonna do, what decisions they're gonna make, because you know the future. Why would you send a message and say, well, perhaps they'll do this, and I hope that they do that, and why even bother to warn them to correct their ways if you know whether they're going to correct their ways or not?
You want my opinion?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, um, I've always said that being omniscient,
You
is,
thought it was rhetorical?
right? I was about to say, wow, like let's start this night off spicy. I always feel like we've undervalued the word omniscient.
Hmm.
And so like people feel like, okay, well, you know what choice is gonna be made. And I've always looked at it as I know all the possibilities of choices that you could take. And I know the end of all those choices. Right? Like there are multiple ways to do this thing, and I know
More like
the
Doctor Strange.
pardon?
More like Doctor Strange.
Kinda, yeah, right. And so I don't think it's a matter of it's a matter of I know the future,
What's
but
Doctor Strange?
the movie, like
I don't.
Like the character, the Marvel
yeah,
character, Doctor Strange,
one of the OGs.
the
Wow.
Avengers,
No,
and
couldn't tell you.
all that.
Oh,
No,
okay.
no clue. But go
Forget
ahead.
that. But I just feel like it's one of those like I know all the possibilities and all the outcomes. I'm not necessarily sure which one you'll take, but whichever one you take, I know what the outcome of that
It's
one
not
is.
going to catch me by surprise.
Right.
Okay. Jerry, did you always look at it like that, or did you see omniscience
I
as
I actually I actually always saw he knew
he knew the
the
choices as
outcome of
well?
everything. He knows the choice he would actually take, and I think it's because he knows those choices. He sorts of he navigates options for you. He can't force your will, but he can permit things to kind of nudge you in the right direction. And I've seen that repeatedly, where even if I'm hell bent on something that he knows is going to be like, okay, yeah, this will go downhill really fast, he will put things in the way to kind of nudge me in the right direction. And that's why, if I don't take those nudgings, it's like, well, yeah, you really screwed yourself over. As to why that choice of language, I actually just started searching to see what the original text would have meant, because I mean it's translated into English, but you know we know what's said is not what it was really saying. And so that's what I was trying to get to the bottom of, right?
And what did you get?
I just pulled it up, so
Oh, okay.
it would be interesting
Why,
to
why you
circle
look
back.
at it? Kermit, what do you think? If he's
Yeah,
omniscient.
I think I fall along the lines of Jerry on this one. Um, simply, I I think omniscient is I you he knows everything. He's the creator. He knows the beginning from me. He created us. He knows, you know. I think it's hard. Even using Sharika's example, it's still he knows what you're going to do, right?
Mm, I think
It's,
I think it's slightly different though. I feel like it's I know all the things you could possibly do and what the end game of all of those things are.
yeah. So then you know.
No, which is very different than saying I know the exact path that you're going to take and I know what's going to happen as a result
But
of
if he
that.
knows, but I guess yeah, no, I understand that. I'm saying, but if if you know the end of what all those possibilities are, and then you know the end, then all you do is back your way from the end, and you get to whatever
No,
decision
it's, no, it's
was
not the
made.
same end everywhere. It's not the same end. I know
No,
all
I'm
the
saying
ends.
the end.
Capital THE.
He knows the end, and you
Uh-huh.
work your way back on all these tributaries back to the decisions that people chose. If you already know the end.
Well, maybe if you think about, and I'm just thinking about Sharika's position, just a little, just flushing it out a little bit more. If we all get to the beach at some point, but the journey to the beach could be a whole number of journeys, but I still end up on the beach. Whether I end up on the south side of the beach or the north side of the beach, I still end up on the beach. So I could know that the end of the course is the beach. There's no other path to anything but the beach. But which way I take to the beach is still being determined, and I know what you'll meet on each path if you take this one. But it's kind of like a GPS to the destination. You'll still end up at your destination if you keep following the GPS. Kind of like that. Is that kind of along the lines where you're thinking about, Shrika? Am I?
Yeah, I definitely think there's also the opportunity for you to detour, right? Like, and the reason why I say that is because in the absence of the ability to detour and end up at the mountainside, beach and mountainside usually are the two that people argue. Then, in my personal opinion, this whole Christian walk is in vain. And I say that only because I do get to choose if I want to ultimately end up at the beach or if I ultimately want to end up in the mountain. Now, I can take, to your point, multiple paths to get to the beach or the mountain. And at any given point, I can decide I don't want to go to the beach anymore and I can end up on the mountain. In any event, the GPS, Google knows how to get to the mountain, all these other places. Like, if
But I
you
guess
keep
my thing is but
changing.
I guess my thing is where in the scenario where he knows the decision you're going to make, where in there can't you detour?
So, if you know the decision I'm going to make and I detour, that means I've taken you by surprise, in my opinion. And therefore, you were not prepared for the decision that I was going to make.
Or he already knew that you were going to detour. I
Perhaps.
guess I guess that's my I guess that's my thing is like if he whether him knowing doesn't necessarily prevent you from doing making your decisions. Him knowing that you're going to make your decision doesn't prevent you from making your decision.
So
You're
does
going
he
to
know
make your
I'm going to
decision.
make a decision or I'm going to make the decision?
The
Maybe
that
I'm maybe
I
I'm
don't want to
getting
say
lost.
the. He knows you're going to make that decision. Whichever decision you made, he knows you're going to make that. Is what I'm saying.
I disagree on that.
So, Kerrick,
So
here's why where I'm not disagreeing, but I'm wondering if that is the case and what you're saying is true, why send the warning?
Right.
And
was
why,
that?
if he knows the decision that the people are going to make, right? Why then say perhaps they might?
No, but why not send the warning? Because it's like
Yeah, it's like
everything that he does is redemptive
Yeah,
first. So it's like I will give you every opportunity, every warning to make a better decision. And if you don't, well, that's on you. You can't turn around and say you were
and it
tempted of God or
Yeah, but if
what
you
if
know
God
if
had
you
declared this or God had said this. So he gives you every opportunity. So I can't pronounce that word. That's the Hebrew word um, that I put in the chat, which says he's aware of past, present, and future. Nothing takes him by surprise. His knowledge is total. So if his knowledge is total, like then total is everything and everyone with the exception of nothing and no one, right? So there's nothing he does not know, which means he knows the choice you're actually going to make, at least like, on the face of it,
yeah, I struggle with that because of how the Great Commission is set up.
right?
And the whole idea of God coming to try and save the world and giving everybody opportunity, but knowing that a great majority of people would not. And understand a great majority of people would not. If you know that they're not, then you know why bother to give them the choice?
did
Because if you
So
don't,
did
then
did
there can't be
did
love
God
did
without
he
choice.
know?
So if you don't
Did
give
he
people the
know?
choice, they can never act in love.
did God
Did he
know
know
that he
Adam and
wasn't
Eve
gonna
were gonna?
that
Yeah,
Abraham?
that's all I said. Did he know Adam and
Right.
Eve were gonna do what they did?
And so that's exactly my challenge there
Well, no, I
because
was gonna
in the
say
Bible,
Abraham. I was looking at Abraham and his negotiation with Sodom and Gomorrah. Like, I mean, going through that story, you kind of had the you it it lent to you believing that God already knew where this was going to be.
right?
But
And
you but he entertained and allowed him to go through the process, right?
agreed.
For and I kind of look at it from that perspective. Like he already knows where it's going to be. He's letting us go through the process because we're based upon where he wants us to be and the overall goal of what he's trying to attain. I'm sorry, prove. Um, I think he allows us that the opportunity to go through that, and part of that is receiving warnings. Part of that is going through him providing these road signs as we're going through to say stop, hold on, no, yield, whatever, and it's up to us to figure it out. He knows what we're going to do, just like he knew what Pharaoh was going to do based upon his tendency. Like all these different things, it's kind of
I'm kind of with you, Kenrick, except that that same story has him coming down to check to see if what he was hearing was true before he make his decision. Right? He almost had to come and validate what the situation on the ground was. That's the way the story is told. I'm not just adding that. That's what they came down to do. And he says it. I came to check to see if what I'm hearing is what really going on here. And
yeah.
then when he validated what was really going on here, then he was like, yeah, nobody here ain't going on change because I checked. I know what's going on here. I ain't even bothering to send a warning anymore because they beyond hope.
But
Right, but
but
is
he
it
knew.
that is it that
But
that
he
is
knew.
being said for his sake or for ours who are reading this going forward, just to demonstrate that he will
Well,
go to
so
the uttermost to make sure every opportunity you have to choose differently and better, you're given
maybe,
that opportunity.
maybe, but Genesis also says that when people started getting out of hand, what was his posture? He say, I repent that I made man. I regret deeply that I did this.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And
Like
You don't.
I don't know if if he's absent of emotion even though he knows what's gonna happen. I mean
I
it's
think
I mean,
but
in my mind, it's almost like if I know if I get an inkling somebody's gonna defraud me of money, and then they do it, the emotion I have when they actually do it is gonna be more intense and whatever because it's in that moment I'm feeling it. So it's like he knows what's gonna happen, but it's like when it happens, that's when I guess he
So are we
feels it
saying
most.
that he knew that Hezekiah was gonna beg for 10 more years?
Absolutely.
No, we knew that was he knew it was a possibility.
Now again, all I'm doing is going on what
No,
the
I'm just saying.
actual
I'm saying
word means,
he
and the word
knows.
says his knowledge is total.
He
Nothing
knows it
surprises
all.
him.
So
So how can there be a detail
can
that
we
he
stop
doesn't know if his knowledge is total?
so can we level set the word to know? Maybe that's where I'm getting stuck. No one's paying Debbie Grant Winter any mind. What does it
I'm
mean?
actually paying her all the money.
I can't because she's not even spelling your name properly. So it kind of
That's
like it just cuts it out.
which is why I know, because God knew it wasn't going to be spelled properly, and
So
even then He knew to ignore all of that and that there was going to be a
so
message in
I
there.
need to understand how we're defining to know, and I think that I'm wondering if we are dissecting the same thing but just differently,
Maybe.
because I don't think I'm not saying that he doesn't know. That's not where I'm going. I'm saying there are 10 million ways to die. Choose one,
Choose
right?
one. Really? That's what we're doing? That's what we're
And
doing?
I couldn't get it out of my head.
Actually 6 million ways to die.
6 million ways to
Choose
die.
There's a lot more,
Right?
but yeah.
I know the end game of all those choices. That's how I'm looking at it. There's 6 million ways to do this. And I know the end of all of those. You can pick whichever one you want, and I know at the end, I know which limb's gonna drop first, I know which lung's gonna collapse first, I know which part of your brain's gonna, in every single one of those situations. However, I will allow you to pick which one of those 6 million you want, which
Yes.
is very different than saying I know you're going to pick number 585,704 out of all these 6 million. And there's no way you're going to deviate from that one to go to another one.
Everything you said, I'm saying yes.
But okay.
That sounds
I
like
just-
Kanye Kobe when he's like, more. Right?
No,
Like,
I'm saying yes. He knows all 6,000 of those, and he also knows that I can't remember the number. I'm not all knowing. I can't remember the number that you just said, but whatever that 5,874.
sure.
That one, he knew that you were going to choose that one as well, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. That idea I struggle with in the light of I'm gonna read what I wrote. Um, why go through the motions? Why send warnings? What does it say about the relationship between omniscience and choice? What does this mean for predestination? And if we are all predestined, why send Jesus? Why even bother?
I guess that's where I don't understand. Like, I don't see how him knowing the end is predestined. He just know the end.
No, I think where
you know the end, you don't know you know the end. The person, me, you, us, we, in this process don't know the end, and we have to go through the process. He already knows where it's going to end, but you still have to go through it. We don't know how it's going to end, and he's not necessarily influencing it to get us to a particular place. He's allowing it to play out. He's giving.
What's the point of the spirit? Isn't that what the spirit does?
Yeah, there's
That's
definitely
to guide you. What you do with it is entirely up to
Spirit
you.
is influencer.
It's definitely influencer. It's definitely influencer. And Satan is an influencer.
He has a massive following too, right? And lots of likes. But
options.
But I think the difference here is, Kenrick, and again, I think it's the comma when you were just like everything you're saying and that. I'm struggling with it's this 500,084 one versus the fact that I'm going to go with that one specifically versus the fact that it's whatever one that I choose, what the end of that is.
So
okay.
I agree with that too. but he just knows which one you're going to choose.
Okay, so Psalms 139:16. What is that? What is that?
He said 139.
Yeah.
Bro, who reads this book?
Not I, said the cat. Actually, my dad.
This might be the only book I've never read from beginning to end. I need to do better.
Actually, my
Neither have I.
My
Don't
phone
worry.
froze. It won't even let me scroll through the chapters on this joint.
Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days me
Okay, sir.
in your book before one of them came to be.
So what does that mean?
130. Why is my phone not even scrolling? What the heck?
I'm okay with struggling to comprehend how his omniscience doesn't impact or imply predestination. I am not okay with limiting anything related to God. Like I said, if the
I'm
original
just
was
sorry, guys. I apologize. I'm just getting to it. It was 139. What?
16.
16, I
Go ahead.
like I said, if they're saying his word is his knowledge, his omniscience is total, then and nothing takes him by surprise, nothing is unexpected. I can't wrap my mind around how he could not know exactly what would happen. Now
I don't think we say that though,
just
Jerry.
just well, I hear you, but it's like in my mind, I mean, we've all seen, we know how the world works, we know politics, we know Hegelian eclectic thinking, where you create a left and a right, and you know based on that's why data mining is a massive. I mean, heck, we can calculate and basically based on biodata, we could predict with like a 99% degree of certainty who's going to vote for who. And if we could do that as human beings and we still flood the airways, I mean, we're going to have a general election in 18 months, right? We flood the airways with ads and but we kind of know you're going to vote this way, you're going to vote that way, but it doesn't stop us from flooding the airways with ads, right? The difference I see with God is that it's not a 99.9% degree of certainty, it's 101%. But he's still doing all that he has to do for our benefit. Because I think Kenrick said he knows exactly how it's going to pan out. We don't. And I think all of the warnings and the pleadings of the Holy Spirit and all that is for us. And then in hindsight, when we look back, we'd be like, yeah, God really did say this. He really did do that. He really did. And I didn't. And that's why I'm here. I'm done. Sorry. I was on my soapbox. I'm off it now.
No, I appreciate the soapbox. I appreciate it. I think where I'm struggling is, and this might be you guys thought of me unnecessarily. Then what am I praying for then? And this really bothers me. like what are we asking for stuff for then, folks? Like if we're gonna say, and I think we're all saying we're not limiting the power of God. Our human minds can't even probably understand what omniscient really means. I think we're all okay with that, right? Mm-hmm. But if we're saying, the last option I'm going to take, and you're just in so many ways, this is how I'm receiving it. We're just going through the motions here. Like we just know we know who you're gonna go. But we going through the motions just to say that I did it, right? Like.
Well, I think we go into the emotions to change us, because that's the point of prayer. Prayer doesn't change God's mind; it changes us.
But if there's a possibility for change,
right,
then it's not set.
And God does change his mind. He does change his mind.
What do you? I guess my question is, what is the change?
That's the question. That's the question.
But knowing
what's the change you think? What is the change your prayer? Do you think your prayer is making?
I could go from being a Satanist to a believer. I can go from being an atheist to a believer. I can move through the cities of life.
You think he already knows that you're going to make that decision?
But my point is, here's the thing, and I think this is where I'm struggling. Then let's not go through these motions. Like
if you don't go through the emotions, he's removing your ability to choose.
No, he's not.
No, he's not.
Yes.
If you're basically saying to me, right, Anywhere you go, you ended up on the beach.
He knows you're going to end up on the
No,
beach. It's not
yo,
that he's
no,
deciding
Yeah,
no.
for
but
you
knowing is different from causing. He's not causing. He
and
just
deciding.
he's not restricted to time like
Sharika,
we
here's how I
are.
look at it.
If
You
it's
saw
not a
Here and here.
restriction, then there's a possibility that I don't end up on the beach.
Correct.
Like that's the point, and that's what you guys are saying, that there's no possibility that I don't end up in the beach, and that's not sitting well.
No one's saying. No
I am
one's
saying
that.
he
So
knows
if
where
you
you
watch
end
the
up, beach or
movie,
He
if
not.
just
you watch
knows
the
where you're gonna
movie
end up. I don't know where you're gonna end
and
up.
you saw
He
the
knows.
full movie, doesn't mean that the thing didn't play out the way it plays out. Like just because you saw it doesn't mean you
So
affected the story.
the challenge with the movie is scripted and the
It's
people in the movie
scripted.
are not
Yeah.
actually making
Yeah,
choices.
yeah.
But
Somebody's
That
making
part.
choices on their
Yeah,
behalf.
right, but I'm
Jared, here's
saying for him, it's like a movie. He's seen this. He saw. He's there at the beginning. He's there at the end. He's there in the past. He's in
Bruh.
all of it at the same time.
because God is not bound
But
by time.
his
Time is
presence,
literally.
his omnipresence, it lines up with his all knowing. Because he's everywhere at all times, he knows all the things at the same time. Because he's at all those places at the same time. Not because
And
he's changing anything or
Yeah, but
and
you're
and
just a
so and
robot.
so from Jared, Jared and Sharika, what you're saying, just so I'm very clear, what you're saying is that you believe that he knows all of the options with every decision in every situation for your entire life. However, he doesn't necessarily know what you're going to choose for in those particular situations.
I'm sure that there's
He
a
does he
life.
know where you're going to end. He
I'm
knows
sure
you're
that
going to end up. He just doesn't know which path you're going to take to that end up place.
so I can say I'm sure that there's a likelihood because people have tendencies and whatnot, and there's a likelihood that you're going to do this, but he makes allowance for me to make the decision, and whether I choose this, whether I'm tenant or I say, yeah, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna go the next way. Um, I think he's following along with us rather than anticipating us. I think
But
that's
how does that?
here's why I say that, because the language that's being read, and this is the language in this verse that's making me say that, right? It's not just my own thoughts. He says, this is what Jeremiah is saying is God's words, right? So these are his thoughts, his feelings, his perspective that I'm trying to understand. He says, tell them everything I command you, do not omit a word. Perhaps they will listen and turn from their evil ways. There's a chance.
So let me ask you a question. So
Then I will relent and not inflict on them the disaster I was planning because of the evil they were done. And what you also see is that he's doing these things to get them to do different, because he doesn't want to bring this thing. He doesn't. So that's why he's sending the
un,
messages over and over and
un,
over again.
understood. But even at this point with Jeremiah, you know that certain things have to happen. Like he's already predicted certain things to happen down the road. They have to go through this because Israel's going to be in this particular situation, and they're going to be under Roman rule by the time. Like all of these things have to happen, right? Because in order to get to this particular place when he comes as a baby, right?
Maybe.
I'm
Um,
just so like no, but there's prophecy. There's literally
Right,
prophecy
right, right. That lays
that's
out.
saying that this is going to exist and this is going to happen and this is
Right.
going to happen, right? All that stuff happens. In order to get to those things happening, there's like in order to, it's the butterfly effect, right? It's
So
in order, it's the thing that happens over here that you can't see that
mhm.
affects this thing that happens, 5,000 miles away, right? But that thing over here had to happen in order for you to get to this thing happening 5,000 miles away. So all this stuff had to happen in order for the prophecy to be fulfilled. So he's saying all these things, but it's still, at the end of the day, these Babylons are going to do what he said they're going to do. Because if not, then prophecy no longer exists.
So then why say perhaps?
perhaps leaves the opening for change of direction.
Yeah.
It
Again, I'm
does.
just
It
thinking
does in
he's
real
saying
time,
that
and I
for
do I
our
do agree with
benefit,
you.
not for his.
I
Right.
do agree with you in that he's
And he's
walking
saying,
with
if
them.
I do
So he
this, you
doesn't
have
really
the
he
option to
doesn't
do that.
really he doesn't really hope that will be the case. He doesn't really want that.
It doesn't matter.
There's
When I
only
say it
one
doesn't matter,
was.
because here's the
He
thing:
does
at the end
want
of the
it.
day, God sees time as one continuous snapshot. He knows what was, is, and will be. Time is not a constraint that he's bound by.
And
So if he
he's
just looks
everywhere
down
at
into
all times at the
if he
same
looks
time.
down into the portal of time, he's seeing everything at once, like Laurie had said. There's nothing that he doesn't know the outcome of. But he's not interfering. You do what you want to do, but I know what you're gonna do.
Right. I just the sentence of
But what I guess my
that hopefulness that you will do different.
Yeah.
If I'm aware that you won't, I don't have that hope.
Let me let
huh?
Yeah, but he's not like us. That's
if
So
Cliff
hold on,
was
hold on.
not necessarily
So
if
it's a little
If I'm
different though
aware
because
that you won't, I don't have the hope
hundred
because I know
percent.
that you won't.
I beg to differ because I think there are all times when we know people. It might be people who suffer from addiction. It might be us. It might be our kids. You kind of know if it's like you guys saw Madison, right? She had a little sleep, a little nappy time this afternoon. I know she's going to be up till 1 o'clock. I hope, especially with her grandmother here, it
But
might
here's the thing:
help us
you
settle
don't.
down. But the
Yes.
chances are,
So
So can God?
looking at it in terms of tendencies, I could say that. But where your eyes that if you knew and had a picture of what was going to happen,
mhm.
do you still hope?
And he
Because
does.
in your instance, you don't know whether she will or not. You have a good inkling, a good feeling, and probably a well informed, well researched guess, or
Mhm.
even not even so much a guess. Well informed.
so okay.
But here's the thing.
Kind of have a good
Just one thing.
informed.
You
Is
remember?
God
You
ever
guys remember?
surprised?
No,
Is
So
hold
then
on.
are
Well,
you
well, according
saying
to the
are,
definition, they would know. But you guys remember when he was weeping over Jerusalem, and he said, "How often would I have gathered you to me like a mother, like I think a hen would its chicks, but you wouldn't come that way." So it's like he knew what they would do. He knew they would crucify him, but that hope
Even that
inside of him, that
statement,
love for them,
Terry,
was always.
even that statement says, "I was trying, and because I hope that you will." And it's because you didn't, and you continue rejected, and you're still in the period of
But
rejection.
that's what I'm saying. That although he knows the outcome, his love is such that he will still do in spite of knowing the outcome, which
No,
is
but
what I
that's
think differentiates him
time.
from
But
us.
no, but he's
The minute
knowing.
we get an
But
inkling that
guys,
it's going south, we're like, I'm good, and we back out.
but he's knowing the outcome of how things play out. Like I think, and I don't know, it's kind of difficult to understand it, but like I know I know the end, but I know the end because I know how this thing plays out.
because I was
Like
there throughout the process.
I gotta play the story out, even though I he's playing it out with us, although he knows where it's gonna be. But it's only gonna be where it's gonna be if it plays out.
That's like saying he shouldn't have bother with Adam and Eve and just been like, all
So
right,
I'm not even so much saying that. I'm not even saying that because that may have had a bigger plan to it. And like Shrika said, we're not trying to limit God here. I am just concerned about the language that the Bible uses about God's thoughts around things
hmm
doesn't align with some of the things we are seeing.
but
It does though.
even
It doesn't align for Jared and Sharika.
Okay.
it doesn't align to be hopeful for something that you know what's going to be. That
Right, but that's to our human understanding, and I always go back to the fact that God wasn't messing around. He said, "Your understanding is foolishness to me, and my wisdom is foolishness to you." I think
right,
there's some things that our mind, finite mind, just will not
cannot.
get because we have a finite mind, and He doesn't. I, I don't know.
Is God ever surprised?
No, and no, I don't think so. I think there's
Well, the
no,
word says He cannot be.
but he can
He's
change
aware,
his
past,
mind.
present, future. Nothing takes him by surprise. His knowledge is total.
But
But
I
he
do think
can't
he can
be.
change his mind. But he's not surprised.
But he, but he, but he. If he, if he's not surprised, then a change in direction doesn't catch him off guard.
No one said it caught him off guard. I'm
Well, I'm
saying
just saying, like if you're saying that I'm going down this path and there are these ways, 6 million ways, right? And he's like, I know that these ways exist, and you're going down this path, and Pharaoh, right? So Pharaoh's going down this path. Pharaoh had all these different options in front of him, right? Was there ever a chance that Pharaoh would have been able to choose
Not after the Holy Spirit stepped in and said, "I'm gonna harden his heart on purpose." But prior to that, yeah, like
so
my man
so
stepped
Pharaoh
in and was like, "Yeah, you're not changing your mind because I got plans for you," right? And that could simply be
because it had to go that way, right?
it could be
No,
the data. It could be data mine, like going back to data mining. And I'm just trying to humanize this, right? It could be, all right, the tendencies, to Jared's point, the tendencies of Pharaoh
Would lend you to be
are leaning to the
correct.
fact that he is not ultimately not going to change his mind. However, I will harden his heart right now to accomplish what I need. The one thing we don't know about the story is whether or not that hardening, that forceful hardening, was removed, right? Because Pharaoh really
What we know is that that hardening of his heart was actually probably very true when it comes to the tendencies, because after they left and God is no longer in the picture playing that, playing the role, he then went and was like, no, I want him back.
right. But
Right.
what I'm
So
saying is
so
the
everything kind of
story.
played out to kind of who Pharaoh is, right, which led him to chase them down to the Red Sea and ultimately to his demise.
What I'm saying is, and I don't know if Pharaoh died in the Red Sea. I think his army died. I'm not
Well, I'm saying all the
right.
people.
But what I'm saying is the story doesn't tell you what happens to Pharaoh's army. It and
Right. But what I'm saying is the
part.
story doesn't tell you what
I
happens.
don't know. How many are we listening to me in multiple ways?
That was
Okay.
Cliff.
Um,
I mean, I knew what you were gonna say as you were saying it.
most definitely, right? Because
Yeah,
you
yeah.
are on your level, on your way
Yeah.
to omniscience.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
What I'm saying is Pharaoh, before the Godhead stepped in, had multiple choices at play.
Mm-hmm.
The Godhead stepped in and took his ability to choose. So this is what I'm gonna do, because I'm gonna move these things this way and this way. The story doesn't tell you what happens after he loses half or a quarter of his army and they go back to Egypt. We don't know what happened to Pharaoh. We don't know if Pharaoh decided that he want to be saved versus not saved, because it's irrelevant. All we know is that he was a pawn in a game of movement for a short period of time, perhaps a long, but we only know about this short period of time.
Sure.
But during that time, what I'm saying is the data that's been collected, the likelihood is that he would have done this. It may have taken him longer, which God is probably saying, listen, I'm going to speed this thing on up, right? Like, and move them and move his hand. But I also can't say that God planned for those children of Israel to be on a 40-day journey for 40 years.
Yeah, that's my point.
Like,
That.
he didn't plan for that.
He didn't plan for that.
He didn't lead them out of Egypt for them to wander the desert
for 40 years. He didn't leave. That was never the
Hold on,
original
hold on,
plan.
hold on,
It was always an
hold on.
option, but it was never the original plan. Like,
Why?
He didn't.
Well, so hold on.
What do you
So-
mean?
No.
What do you mean?
I want to differentiate between goal and plan. Like, he knew that they were going to do all the things they were going to do, and it was going to take them 40 years. That may not have been his goal. He may have rather them been somewhere else. The goal was for them to do what he was asking them to do, but he knew that they were going to spend 40 years.
can't agree with that. That's like saying he knew there was an option that they would stay there for that long. But you're telling me that he planned to wipe out? Nah.
Yes.
Chill out. Back to the verse. We have a verse on the table. We have Isaiah 46, verses 8 through 11. I'm going to go ahead and read this out loud for y'all so that y'all can go ahead.
We read this last time. And
Isaiah 46.
This was Sean's verse, and he did the same thing. He excerpted them same verses.
And I wasn't here, so let me.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna let you go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, I wasn't here. Remember,
I wasn't here for it.
and stand
Isaiah
firm.
46. What?
8-7.
46, 8 through 11.
She missed it. She got to get part
Oh
of it.
Lord, here we go.
Okay. Remember this and stand firm. Recall it to mind, you transgressors. Remember the former things of old, for I am God, and there is no other. I am God, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient things not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will accomplish all my purpose. Calling a bird of prey from the east, the man of my counsel from a far country. I have spoken, and it will come, and I will bring it to pass. I have purpose, and I will do it. Now, this taken out of complete context means
Right.
what y'all not gonna do in this year of eight of me doing this with y'all. Act like I don't know better. So, what exactly are we trying to do with one? Outside of the context that we want, we gonna be supermarket Christians with this. Hold on,
I'm taunted Jared right now.
let me get my cart right. I'm ready to get off the shelves what I want and throw it into my cart.
Jared.
This means absolutely nothing by so
Thank you, Sharika. I tried that last week, and that didn't work out too well.
Yeah, you missed it.
Okay, so I'm glad I'm caught up. Because all this speaks about is what it has nothing to do with the how.
So yes,
Right.
I like to point that out. I think maybe where we're missing each other is the difference between what and how.
Yeah.
Kenrick it sounds like Kenrick is representing the God knows what and how. Right?
Everything.
we
Todos.
He knows the what. He knows the potential hows.
And he's not surprised by any of them.
Correct.
Which we agree. I think you guys are.
But
You agree with that.
But the choice, I think maybe what we're saying different is knowing the how
And the what?
well, he knows. We agree that he knows.
We're okay with the what and the why. We're okay with the what and the why.
Right. We're not.
Okay.
This is gonna sound bad. Can I say this? Knowing the how in so many ways makes Jesus dying on the cross a waste of time, in my opinion.
Correct.
And that's hard. That's hard for me to come to terms with.
Knowing the what?
Knowing
The
the
how
how.
makes it feel like Jesus dying on the cross is a waste of time.
I guess my thing is,
You guys realize something?
it's kind of it's this conversation's kind of meaningless.
It's friends arguing amongst friends on a Friday. I mean,
Right.
like
That's what we do.
Yeah, but it's
I don't know.
you know it's
No,
it's
no,
like,
for me, it's not
the
meaningless
Jordan,
because
it's
it.
the Jordan LeBron conversation.
No,
Like,
no.
it's
Here why it's not Kenrick. The idea of and so was one of my classes. They taught me this. The idea of universalism, which is, you know what that is that there are Christians who believe that eventually everyone will come to love, to know, and serve God because God's love is so powerful, even after death. And
Yeah.
even after death, and there's an opportunity after death for God's love to be transformative, right?
100% correct.
There are people who believe
I'm just,
that.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Oh, that's not what the Bible says, but okay.
Stop.
Right. I was like,
No,
wait.
no, there are people who leverage the Bible.
Yeah, you can leverage the Bible to do anything.
All I'm saying is what I'm saying. Because that position exists, that position influences how they do evangelism, the urgency at which they do evangelism. Again, there are also people who believe Jesus was coming tomorrow, and so they're a little bit more, or Jesus is coming in their lifetime, and so their approach to evangelism is now different because of it. So it's not meaningless.
Well,
The
I
whole
guess it's
predestination thing, because if I
guess
know that no matter what I do, I'm going to be lost eventually because I'm going to make
You
it.
don't know.
but that's I guess that's my
I
problem.
know that God knows that. Then I am going.
But you don't. But that's where we're missing, Jared. That's where we're not. So you don't know.
No, I
where
don't
you're
know.
going to be.
No, I don't know.
no, but you're telling me that God
knows.
already knows.
Yeah.
That's the
I'm
what's the
saying God
problem?
already-
Why is that
I'm
a
saying
problem?
God already
Right.
knows.
What's the problem with that?
Jared,
saying,
Sharika, I don't know
saying,
if you
so
guys
I
just
don't
pause
know.
and
I
think
don't know
about it. The
how God
argument,
already
the
knowing means that
discussion
you've
we're
already
having,
damned yourself,
the
Say that one
discussion
more
or
we're
time, Henry.
promoted
having.
yourself.
I can't hear Kendrick.
No, I'm saying I don't know how God already knowing leads you to a position where you either damn yourself or you promoted yourself. I don't know, like
So
whether He knows it or not doesn't stop you from playing the game.
true, but let's look at back the verse that I started with, right?
When he said perhaps.
If God already knows, does he do the same thing?
Yeah, he does. I
Yes.
Bec-
This argument is the exact same argument Lucifer had with the angels in heaven. It's either he knows everything or he doesn't. And if he doesn't know everything, we have a chance of sneaking up on him and giving him a whoop. There it is. We know how that turned out. It's the same argument he went to Adam and Eve with. It's either he knows everything or he doesn't. And if he
That's
doesn't,
argument.
That's
then
not
you
the,
can
that's
do
not what
this.
he said.
Argument.
That's
Hold
not
on. You
that's
can
not
do
the
this
argument.
and not surely die.
That's
That's
not
not
the
the
I guess
argument.
argument.
That's not
That
what
is
I
the
guess
what
argument
Adam
because
said.
the
No,
argument is
no,
either his knowledge is total or
no.
That's
it's
not
not.
Adam and
Lucifer
Eve
never
had
did
nothing to
that.
do with God's omniscience or
Yeah.
his omnipresence
Nope.
at
It's
all.
either his
so.
knowledge is total or it's not.
No, that's not what Adam and
And
Eve.
according to the literal definition of the original word is, it is total.
Yeah.
So
So you're not
I am still at a loss
debating
why
that.
we're debating something when the word that is used literally means it's total, which means he knows exactly what you're going to do. He knows when, how, all of that stuff. And he's still going to do his part and do all the right things and give you all the options, although he knows exactly what the outcome is going to be because he understands that if he does not do that, he is feeding into the narrative of Satan, which is, I don't operate in love. I am just here to
What happened?
control things and control outcomes. It's like
But my I guess
I'm gonna go all out with the love, although I know exactly what you're gonna do. Or in spite of the fact that I know exactly what you're gonna do.
but my meaningless point was like the fact that this conversation is kind of meaningless, and I don't not meaningless like
Not that your
disrespecting
point
your
with me.
question, Jared, because you're Jared, so your question's very valid. But it's meaningless in that, and absent of like the universalist, right, or universalism thought, right, what you're asking, like what kind of where you and Sharika are, and where the rest of the Christians are is is that, I don't know if it really matters, right?
It
If
does.
you
It matters
believe,
how I look at him.
no, I'm saying if you continue believing the way you look at it, and I continue believing the way I look at it, I'm not sure we miss like it plays out, right? There's nothing.
We
There's
can
nothing that's
disagree.
really there that's going to change anything.
We can
Right?
agree to
It
disagree.
doesn't affect the way I interact with God, and the way you look at it doesn't affect the way you interact with God. It plays out.
No, it does change the way I interact with him. When I like, because the whole
No,
Saul,
if you continue thinking the way you're thinking, it doesn't.
it does because I feel like again sets up because here's why. If I was Saul, right,
Mm-hmm.
and God knows that I was going to be, I became and chose me to be king anyway, he set me up. That nigga set me up.
So
Say that one more
what is
time. Say that
interesting
one
But
more
with that
time.
is that all
here's
of
the
the
Hold on,
thing:
hold on.
when
Hold on. I missed
if
on
I
what
am
side it cut out.
Saul
And he knows I'm
Okay,
not
Saul.
supposed to be
Okay, I
king.
got
and
you.
he knows, and he so first of all,
I got you.
according
I'm with you.
according to his choice of David, God don't look at man's outward appearance; He looks at the heart. And when He chose a king, and He's choosing a king, when he went through the process of choosing David and selected him from among his brothers, He chose David because of his heart,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Also chose Saul. The story says for the same reason,
Mm-hmm.
of his heart in that moment, because of his heart in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
maybe.
the expectation, at least the hope was that by choosing this guy, he will do what he's supposed to do. Because he's positioned to do that.
He was tall and handsome too, but yeah,
He was also tall and handsome, but he was positioned to do that.
yeah.
This dude became something other than what God intended, or his heart posture changed from what he was when he was selected to when he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
In the case is that God is choosing him knowing that he's going to go that route. If I am Saul, I feel like God set me up. because he's gonna say he knows my heart, and knew that I was going to go this route. And so
And made a
he
spectacle
never
of me.
really intended for me to be king.
Exactly. And he made a
No,
spectacle.
so that's I guess that's I have a
I see
problem.
him
I have a
the same
problem.
challenge.
I have a
Hold on,
problem with
before you
that
go on,
word.
before you go on,
No,
because he does the same thing with Jeroboam.
I have a
He
problem
does
with
the
the word
exact
you
same thing
use.
with Jeroboam. He chose
The word you use.
Jeroboam on the same basis that he chose David.
Yep.
On the same basis he chose David, he chose Jeroboam.
My problem, Jared, is the word you're using. God did not, in this process, he's not intending. You use intended. This is not intentional. God did not do this and set him up to do that. Once again, the way I view this thing is that God is he knows the end, right?
Because he's in
But
the end.
although he knows the end, he in order to get to the end, you got to play this out and he's with us. He didn't intend it. This is the way it played out and it ended up this way. He just
So
knows how it's going to end up the way you decided and the way you played it out. Me
so
knowing him knowing the end doesn't mean that he's in there pulling the strings to make sure you get to that particular end.
that's
The
that
end is where
here's
it
why
ended
that's
up.
not here's why that's a challenge for me, because of Pharaoh. And I'll say this. Pharaoh did have a choice. God knew his tendencies and played him for his tendencies. Right? The hardening of his heart was a play on his tendencies.
Yeah, but you know the actual word there for hardening doesn't mean what we
So what I
interpreting it to
understand
mean,
it to
right?
say, what I understand it to mean is he became more set in his position,
Yes.
right? And
He
God knew
became
what
more
to
set in
do.
the position, but God didn't set him in it.
No, that's my
No,
point.
that's not what we're saying.
I'm saying heat hardens a stone or
Right.
hardens clay and melts wax, right?
That's what we're saying.
Because I know he is a clay
Hothead.
substance. If I apply heat to him, I know what's going to happen,
Period.
Mm-hmm.
right? If I
Mm-hmm.
play it to his ego, he's going to feel more of himself. And I need him to do that because I need everybody to know this thing.
Exactly.
But
I
let me ask
chose
you a question.
him. I chose him in this moment for those qualities. And that's what God says about him.
He's a catalyst.
Let
Yes,
me
he's a
ask you a question,
catalyst to
Jared.
what I
Has
need to
there
be done.
so is everybody that we're gonna classify as clay, and I don't know who they are, right? Has everybody who is clay hardened their heart?
No.
You wanna
know.
you
I
guys
won't know.
I don't
That's what.
know.
Yeah, we don't know.
But what we do know is the heat was applied in this situation. And the point we're trying to make is simply this. If you're going to be a catalyst to something, Pharaoh was provoked. No problem with it. We're not saying that he was a good guy that became a bad guy. We're saying he was on his path of badness. He got a little more ammo, a little more razzle dazzle, and did what needed to be done.
He was
That's what we're
able
saying.
to be used, and he played his role. He played his role by being himself.
By being himself.
I don't disagree. I don't
We
disagree with
don't
you.
know what happened. We don't know what happens when they crossed over the Red Sea. We know during that moment his role was played in God's favor. Right. What we're saying, the second part of this even is, as Jared and I said, it's hard for me to accept that a 40-day journey, the plan was the 40 years. Because if you listen to
it
the
wasn't
story,
actually 40 days, it was supposed
That's
to be
not the
11 days, but
that's
that's
not
a
the
separate
plan.
conversation.
That's my point.
even
You guys use
even
plan
so,
and
whether it's
intended. I'm
5
not-
days, 11 days, what we're saying is
That's not the
there's a
plan.
level of choices that were at play out there that potentially slowed down the process, sped up the process, whatever is at play. But the infinite amount of things that were taking place was not the original plan. Or we don't know. And we could have changed multiple times. There were multiple ways to get these people to change their plans and their ways.
My-
And we know that they stayed in the desert because he had to make them into a new people. We know that. Period. But
my
was it
problem
when-
is the words that are being used. I don't think that there was the plan. The plan was not. There was no plan. You use plan. Jerry used intended. I think those are a little bit too manipulative, right? I think that at the end of the day, God knew or knows what's going to happen, but he only knows what's going to happen because he's seen it play out.
Everywhere
In
at all.
order for it to play, but it has to play out. He's not making it happen, right? it's playing out. He just knows how it's going to end.
So he can't change. So what happens when he
Right?
changes his mind? What happens when he
What's that
changes his
again?
mind? What happens when he changes his mind?
What do you mean? What happens when he changes his mind?
God can change his mind, correct?
In the Yes, but it's in the process of the whole thing. Like that's I guess my thing. Like we're looking at it. We're looking at it as this. I don't even know if it's like a 4D, a 5D. I don't know what it is, but it's like time inside of time after time after time.
Time is linear for us.
Time.
Like
Sorry.
yeah, I was trying to go to the song, but I couldn't remember. So anyway, it was like he sees it playing out, but it's gotta play out as he sees it playing out. Like it's not there's I don't know. So he didn't give me the ability to articulate thought well either. So there's a
You guys
flaw
want to
there.
hear something funny? Especially coming off of the heels of the last session.
Oh gosh.
So, the number one argument of atheists is that free will and choice don't actually exist
Mm-hmm.
because God knows, the Bible implies that God knows everything before it's going to happen. Who does what, how and when it's done. And if that's the case, then how can choice or free will exist?
I don't agree with that logic.
Well,
You know, that we don't. I don't think. I don't think
I don't
anyone in
subscribe
the
to that
in
logic.
the Hollywood squares right now is agreeing with that.
but it's
But when you
this is what I'm saying. In my mind, once you try to put the omnipotence, omniscience of God into a box, this is where you're likely to end up. You cannot put a box on God. The minute you put a box on God, he's no longer God.
I don't know that that's what I'm doing in this instance.
Well, no, I'm not saying that's what you're
I'm
doing or attempting to do, but like I'm saying, in my mind, it's like God knowing exactly what will play out and who will do it is not God making a determination that that's what they will do.
agreed.
I think there was an
And
ideal that I think there was an ideal
I
that
think
God
him
had.
being God means he can know everything. His knowledge could be total, and he will still, unlike us, do the right thing because it's his
do
nature,
everything,
it's his character. It's not our nature or character to know Sharika gonna do me dirty and still keep giving love and support and whatever to Sharika. That's not
That's
our nature.
that's not what
But
I'm
it
asking.
is.
Sir.
But I think there's an ideal that God works to a like. I think the ideal is that you know God does work to a baseline, right? And I think the baseline was that you know everything remained perfect in Eden, right? That was the
Yeah.
baseline that God was working with about or working within. I also understand, I think, that he also knew that that wasn't going to exist. The baseline was it would have been great for, ideally the children of Israel making it through the wilderness in 11 days or whatever the number of days it's supposed to be, they get make to the promised land. But at the end of the day, that was the baseline. He also knew they weren't going to be able to work to that baseline based upon, what he already
certain
knew.
factors.
There are all these different baselines that, ideally make sense, right? But in reality, that wasn't going to happen because of all these other external circumstances that he already knew, because he knew, in my opinion, knows the beginning from
Because
the
he was
end.
there.
It wasn't going to happen, but it still has to play out, right? And then along the way, you figure out, and he already knows. I do believe he knows where the six of us end up. The thing is, we don't know where we end up, and it's not that he ended us up that way. He just knows how the decisions we're going to make, right? And in that process of us making those decisions, we are asking him, we're seeking him, and he knows whether we're going to obey and what we're not going to do. That's not him manipulating or creating an intention on our
So,
lives or intended purpose or plan for
so,
us.
so what do you do, Kenrick, with sending Jesus to make an appeal? If that is not an attempt at manipulation, and I don't mean manipulation in a bad way, right? I don't mean subtle manipulation where people are led along ways that they don't want to go, but it's an attempt to influence your decisions. It is an
I
attempt.
guess
It's an attempt at influence. Maybe not manipulation, but it's an attempt at influence.
Agreed.
What's the point of the attempt to influence?
if you already know the end
I'm not
Because
smart.
it's an
I'm
act
not
of
smart.
love
I'm
to
where I'm-
give them
that's where I
every
can't-
chance.
That's where Jared and I are stuck. It doesn't make
No, I
any.
get it.
It's not
And
computing.
It's not supposed to
enough to
make
be your
sense
safe
because his
choice.
character is not your character. And he is saying, I am going to do whatever it takes to save you, even if I know you're going to mess it
There's
up.
also an assumption that you all are right and we are wrong.
No. We're right.
No,
We're
there's
not
no way
right
for you
about
to know that because again, we are now trying to
I
play
know
God's
I'm
role.
right.
And what I'm simply
What's
saying
not
is,
right are the words that are coming out my mouth.
oh my God. At the end of the day, there's an assumption on the table here that your argument is making more sense than our argument, and that in itself is an assumption.
No, I only have one assumption, and the assumption is I cannot and will not put God in a box. That's
And
my
none of
only
us are
assumption.
putting him
And
in a box.
anything that
I'm
when
trying
Yeah,
to
I don't-
put a box.
None of us are
I'm
boxing
trying
him.
to understand.
None
the
of us are
thought process.
boxing him.
That's where I am. I'm trying to understand if
So could
there's a serious attempt at influence when you send
On both sides.
prophets repeatedly over and over and over for years.
You're
It's
influencing.
not just a CYA. It's not just to cover your ass.
You sent the man's down here to even
No,
live.
I agree, and that's no. You're
Because if
100%
he
right.
doesn't,
But
then
that's
somebody
the
in
point.
the
That's the
unfallen
point
worlds, or even us looking back, will be like, he could have done this much more to save them, and he didn't.
But it
Hold
sounds
on,
like it
hold
wouldn't
on.
have made a difference.
Hold on. The number one argument the devil has made against the character of God is that he's not who he says he is. He says, I'm first long suffering, I'm merciful, I'm all that good stuff. I will, what is it? He said, I'm able to save to the uttermost. I will do whatever it takes to save whoever comes to me. Whatever it takes means whatever it takes, regardless of the decision that they're going to make. And I am the dude who will do that, regardless of what they do or don't do. I love enough that I will do whatever it takes.
So you're telling me that this is what I've received, and I want to make sure I'm very clear. I, as your creator, love you enough to carry on and do everything possible, even though I know that none of this is gonna work. But just in case someone says you should have, and I know it's not gonna work, I'm gonna do it anyway.
But remember,
check the box off.
No, look back at the story. Look back at the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, where God kept saying, and Lot was saying, if it has
Thank you, Dana.
5 people, 10 people, God will do whatever just so that one could be saved. It's the story of the shepherd within he leaves the 99 sheep safe and goes and does everything for one. I'm not going to try to say he's doing it to check a box. The point is, or if there is a box he's checking, is I love you enough to do it for you, even if you don't choose me.
No, you just said I love you.
I know you're not going to choose me.
Even though I know
will do it.
Wow, that's wild to me. And maybe we all need some kush to chill out and think about this again.
But think about it.
Like this I'm not doing well with this.
Think about it this way: if you look at all of the characters in the Bible, who were all broken people, if God didn't do everything it took, would Saul have ever become Paul in the New Testament? Would David ever have become the forefather?
Yeah, he would have actually. The way you put it, he would have, because he knows it was going to play out this way anyway. In my personal opinion, I think this is where my brain is like, da-dang, da-dang, da-dang. I'm not sure what's going on here, sis. It sounds like, regardless of if Christ or any prophet came on this earth, this is how this was going to go.
I am saying God knew the outcome, and in spite of him knowing the outcome, he will do whatever it takes to save you, even if you never choose to be saved.
On the cross. But then that also said, okay, so
this is what's blowing my mind, is that's not suck. So
yeah, Kenrick, I'm having the same problem. I don't even. This is the very story of salvation, that he gives his love to all. He paid the sacrifice for all, knowing full well only these 10 people here are going to accept the sacrifice.
So Jerry,
he's literally just so, and this is a bad example, and you're gonna rip it to shreds, right?
Use the bad example.
So at the end of like I said, it's a bad idea.
Yeah, don't.
It's not gonna make sense.
So-
It's not gonna.
Gomorrah is an interesting case study because God told Abraham he was coming to destroy the place because he was confident
Oh,
that no one could be saved in the place.
Because everybody had already made a decision.
Good.
This is no different than the close of probation. This is no different than
We agreed. We're not on dispute. But what it points out is that because of that certainty, he's made this decision. He's not doing any more appeals. He's not doing any more anything else. Right? There's this.
I see it the other way around though.
But
I don't
guys,
see him as acting. I don't see his certainty of an outcome as the genesis for his act. I see him accepting the fact that they have made a definitive decision. We ain't taking you on. That he's saying,
no, but
That's what I'm
guys, it's
saying.
not.
That's
It's
what
not
I'm
even
saying.
that though, Jared. It's not even that. It's literally the only reason he knows what happened is because it plays out.
Yes.
It plays out.
I'm with you. This played out to the place where he had 100%. There was no hope in his comments.
No, I disagree.
But I'm just talking about his language. When he spoke to Abraham, he didn't come with a perhaps. Abraham was the one
Who
talking.
brought the perhaps?
was
Exactly.
talking in perhaps. Right?
God didn't come with the perhaps. He was definitive in the fact there ain't nobody left in there, bro. We taking them out.
Mm-hmm.
And if I find anybody, because you asked me, I'm gonna give you a word because that's who I am. Right? I'm the kind of guy that even if it have 5, I'm gonna keep them. The reason why I could come and say I'm definitely going to destroy this place is that I do my due diligence. It ain't have nobody in it. I'm not the kind of guy who will come if it have 3. Right? I will save it for 3. I'm gonna save it for 5. That's my character. That's who I am. So if I'm telling you, partner, I'm going to burn down that place because I'm sure it didn't have nothing. There's no hope. There's no perhaps. And this is more than just I know the future. Right?
Agreed.
This is more than just I saw it and it played out. Right? So if that is true in this case, in the instances where he is hoping, in the instances where he is
Perhaps.
taking a little bit longer, going a little bit almost let's go another instance is the
Can we agree that it's probably apples to oranges?
No, that's not where we're at.
No,
We're at the fruit.
No,
that's why I can't do
we
apples
can't do
oranges
fruit
yet.
yet.
I can't do apples oranges just
Because
yet
it's the
because of the Amorites.
Okay.
Right? By the time even with Israel, by the time he brings the judgment on, it's when they have made this firm decision. He plays it out to the place where they say no. He doesn't play it out, just he plays it out till they've made that. The case of the Amorites, he said your children will be in. He tells them in advance, your children will be in bondage in Egypt for 400 years because the sin of the Amorites and reaches full measure yet. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess in the future he knows that they're going to make this decision.
Mm-hmm.
He's giving them a chance to get up to that place.
Mm-hmm.
But he knows based on what the decision they make.
Agreed.
But there's a chance for them to turn, correct?
Yes, because it's playing out in real time.
But do they turn?
No. Was that because they chose not to turn?
Okay.
So
No one's removing choice.
Oh, so still here. We still agree on choice. I'm still a pro-choice. I'm still pro-choice. Still pro-choice. Still believe in the freedom of choice.
No one's removing. He hasn't removed choice. He hasn't removed anything else. He's playing it out.
I'm still talking about.
It's me knowing where we're going to end up, right? But me only knowing we're going to end up there because I know that because we're on the path that's going to end up there.
Yeah, I have a challenge with it being set, and I see hopefulness in God so that it's not fully set. It's not fully set till it's set, which is what it's
Agreed.
not fully set till it's set, which kind of lends itself to the million of possible destinations. It's not until we get there that we
I
know that it's there.
But I
I
think
hear
you're
you,
but I
Jared.
think
In
you're
my mind, it's
looking
just
at it
like
as in
because of
God's
who
only walking with
he
us.
is going to keep that love, that hope, that whatever going, even if he knows what the outcome already is.
Here's another example: the seven churches. They come to this place of of knowledge of God, and they're on the right path, and they're new creatures in Christ, and all of that. And there's a chance that they could not make it to the end. And Jesus comes in the middle of the lampstands to give them a warning, to give them a chance to course correct, because if they stay on this path, they stay on this path, that's their end. But that doesn't have to be your end. You can
Mhm.
end over here instead,
Absolutely.
right?
We agree. I agree.
If that is your predestined end, and I'm using predestined
Right.
on
Predestined.
point, I'm on purpose. If I know that's your end, why even bother?
Because it's
Because
your
I am
end. It's
love.
it's your end
And
only
I
because you
have to
live
do
that day.
everything that it takes to give
Like
you
that doesn't
the option for
I
a
don't know
better
how else to say
outcome.
it.
Whether or not you choose to do what you should do with it is not up to me, but I will do. The very fact that Jesus came is because God is saying, I will do whatever it takes. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, 10 billion people live and die, and only 2 billion ever make it to heaven. He is saying, I love all of y'all enough
Agreed.
that I will do whatever it takes, although I know these 8 billion over here,
He-
rubbish.
I'm agreeing with that 100%. It have enough people who will say yes to make it worth it. Agreed.
But he's going to treat it individually. So even if he knows I ain't going, he's going to do everything he can to get me to go. And you and Lauren and whoever else, even if he knows specifically you ain't going to make the choices to go.
So that might be the
But he
divide.
only knows you're not going because you're
Talking,
not going.
we talking in individuals, God working as a unit. So he's
But
making
he always says he treats us as individuals.
no. Here's what I'm saying.
Salvation is an individual thing.
It is, but the effort is not for the individual. The effort is for the group.
Collective.
I beg to differ.
Yes, he died not for you. He died for man. If you
Like
are a
I said,
part
I
of
beg to
man, then
differ.
he died for you, right? So here's what I'm saying. There's enough of man. Let's turn up Israel. Did God get the children of Israel from Egypt to Canaan successfully?
Yeah.
Good. Did the people who left Egypt get
Go. No.
successfully?
Outside of
A
Joshua and
couple of
Caleb,
them.
no,
A
Caleb, no,
few of
but
them.
that's their
That's
fault.
it, right?
Right, but that's their fault, not his.
Wait,
Not all the not all the people.
not talking fault. Stay with me,
Not
Jerry.
all the people.
Follow along.
Yes, I'm with you.
He was faithful to move the group
The children of
to
Israel.
Canaan, not the individuals,
Jared,
because
why
the
why
individuals have the ability to choose.
are you telling me then, Jared, that God has not personalized and tailored a plan of salvation for you? And an
Agree.
individual one for Lauren and an individual one
It's a
for
for
Kendrick
me.
and an individual one for Cliff?
It's a salvation plan for man, and I can
And
fall
here's
into.
why, well, we'll just definitely have to disagree because God knew exactly who I was, why. I mean, he says it. I look at when a man will be born, where he'll be born, choice hereditary environment, and I find ways to give this man in this particular time every possible option for salvation. He
I'm,
literally
Can it
tailors it
not be both
for
and?
you.
I'm saying that
Yes. Yes, Lorraine.
yes, it is both and. What I'm saying is where we are diverging is that one group is talking about the individual, and we are trying to explain God's actions in the lens of an individual, when the actions that we are seeing of God are about the macro, the group. While there are individual actions that are at play in there and individual choices that are taking place, God's speech about what will happen is not a speech about you, Jerry, but about man, which is why Jesus could make sense. This allows Jesus to make sense because Jesus is not coming just for you, Jerry. He's coming for man. You can choose, Jerry, if you are part of the man that is saved. So he's doing all he can to save man. And you get to choose whether you are part of that or not. Does that make sense?
It's but
Makes sense,
I
but I'll disagree.
but it's and but it's it it's both.
because I've just seen the things he will do
You
to
can't
get
have
to
you
me
can't have man without
and reach me that
individuals.
he doesn't have
Absolutely.
or
Multiple
won't do
individuals.
for
So
Kendrick.
it's both.
Because he needs something else to get to Kendrick.
So here's another example. All right. Noah is a perfect example of what I am describing. Right? Noah was the one chosen in his family because he was the one who responded. God used him because of what his heart was. But God's intent was not to wipe out all of man. And by saving Noah and his family, he saved man.
Not just Noah and his family. The idea of man.
Man was saved through the individual Noah and his family.
Yes.
That's where I am. And yes, he did talk to Noah personally, but I'm almost sure he talked to many of those other people in the relationships that he had with them, and they had their own opportunity and they made their decision. But the ark was to save humankind through Noah and his family. Because, and that's where Saul would now make sense and Jeroboam would now make sense because they're individuals who represent Israel, but they're not Israel. And his long suffering is true for the individual and the group. But he was faithful to take these actions on behalf of the group through the individual.
So let me ask. Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Kevin.
So, staying with Noah. So, with the 8 people that lived, the fact that God gave Noah, if I remember correctly, God gave Noah the specific size plans and all that for the boat while he was prior to him preaching.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes out and preaches.
Correct.
So there was an option if people would have accepted
For them to be
that
on the boat too.
he have to build a bigger boat.
Or they could have fit. Maybe the boat had enough space to accommodate more people.
We've seen the actual boat. Like they built the boat. That boat's not fitting. The people that all the people that he's preaching to.
They
Right?
fit a lot. If you believe in the story,
if you had a Nineveh experience, that boat ain't holding.
the boat shouldn't have held all the animals, but here we are.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
So
here we are. So we don't know.
I don't know.
So my thing is, so in that situation, the people had the opportunity to change their mind, or he already knew that only 8 were going to be there.
How about both?
Huh?
How about both? I'm saying if they change their minds,
they can get on the boat. Like that's what we're saying.
Provision will be made.
Right, they can get on the boat. We don't know if they would have. The point of the boat was to preserve humankind. The
Correct.
point of the boat wasn't to preserve Noah's family. That wasn't the point of the boat. It just so happened that the preservation simply was Noah's family.
Because they were the only ones who made the choice.
Who made the choice. But others could have made the choice and they would have been a part of the preservation plan.
Correct.
Absolutely. But God knew they weren't going to make the choice because he already saw it play out.
We're saying that the options are plenty. Like it's what we're saying.
Yeah. No, we agree. Everybody
no,
had the
you
option.
agree. You agree.
No, everybody here agrees. They
Can't
all
say
had
that.
the option. I think what the 4 over here are saying that, and it's crazy that they're on the right side.
I ain't hear from Cliff.
The
I don't know
4
what
over
They say
here,
nothing. And Lorraine didn't say nothing but drop verses. So technically it's 2.
Oh no, I'm a sinner.
Oh, we got 3. Bet.
the Holy Spirit. Oh, she said what?
She's with Kendrick, is what she said.
Oh yeah.
I'm more with Kendrick than I'm
building this church. So
yeah, I realized I was talking the individual group because I realized where the disconnect was. Right? I was talking in the individual.
So
the arguments that you were making were valid arguments, but they were arguments for the macro.
And we're on the micro.
I was on the individual.
I'm on the micro.
I don't separate the two.
Well,
the micro.
There is a relationship. There is an overlap, but
even if you have them big, you have the individuals will make the masses. Like you can't have masses
So
without a bunch of individuals.
I
So
agree.
so both of them are the same.
So so let me do this to help you understand the differentiation I'm making. When Paul says you are the body of Christ, if I read it as the individual, I'm now thinking that me by myself is the whole body of Christ, right? He was talking to a group. So when he said you are the body of Christ, he was saying you all. That
Agreed.
then changes the meaning, right?
Agreed.
If we talking
Yep.
about individual, we'll get one understanding. If we talk about the group, we get another understanding of which the individuals are a part. Yes.
Correct.
So I'm not saying that you can it's one or the other. I'm just saying that when I talk to one, if I only talk to the individual, I'm the message changes as if I'm talking to the group. And I was realizing that that's where we were overlapping and crossing wires.
Great point, Jared. Awesome point.
Yeah.
Because God died for you. That's what Jesus died
Yes. Yeah.
for. The capital Y. Not for Jared specifically. And Sharika's
No, he
been
died for he died for you, or maybe we say us.
them.
Yeah.
The
Them.
entirety.
But no,
Whoever.
I don't want to say them because them is not inclusive of me.
Yeah.
Part of
Unless,
part of all of
unless I
you.
make the choice. Them is inclusive of me if I make the choice.
Here we go. This is what we're
no,
Yes,
no,
it is.
No, he died.
no.
Period.
Them,
For all of us.
them by
No,
definition
he didn't die
does
to
not-
say
does not include
guys.
me.
The only
And I'm
people that
learning
can
this
be
because I'm going through
saved
all
were
my Spanish
covered on
classes.
that. Then
So
you
them
fall
does
into
not
that church
include-
group.
them
No,
does not
Kenrick.
include
Then
me.
you fall into
Wait.
that church group of one saved, always saved. And I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent.
No,
But
them
that's
does
what
not.
you
No,
fall into if you're gonna say Christ dies for me and
no, I didn't say
everybody,
that.
and
I
then
didn't say
Right.
that. I didn't say that. I agree with you guys. Calm down. I agree. Christ died for us, for man.
Yes,
Man
all of us.
includes us. Us
Correct.
is inclusive of
Right.
y'all and me,
Yes.
Mhm.
right? He died for man, us,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But us is made up of
Me.
me's.
Correct. Correct.
Right.
And
And
so,
all people
so
saying,
I'm with you.
yeah.
I get it. I'm just saying, back to the original conversation, you're wrong.
Yeah.
No, I think
No,
we
man,
just approaching it from two different lenses, and that wasn't clear when we started talking. I think when we merged the two together, we realized that we kind of seeing a lot of the same things, and we're not as far apart as we thought.
still far, but not as far.
No, we're not that far.
Not as far.
I don't know how far is right and wrong.
Pretty far.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
In any event,
I feel like we failed you guys.
the
No.
listeners.
No, and here's why. So let's go back
And
to
when I
the
say
verse.
we, I'm inclusive of man, like
So-
us.
I will go back to the verse, Kenrick, and say why I feel that we are not saying the same. We are not far apart, because my challenge was why have hope if you know the people are not. But I was thinking in the individual. Why have hope of the individual? But he had hope because there were people like Jeremiah in the thing. There were people in the group who did. And while the large majority
with you.
didn't and rejected, there were some who still did. And so, because of that, you can see the hope that maybe more would, and why he would keep on.
Okay.
While he
I
did,
didn't think that's where you're going, but I see where you're going.
yeah, while he did punish them as a unit, because the majority of them were bad, they weren't all bad. There was a 5 in there.
Okay.
That's where the perhaps comes from.
Perhaps it could be 6. But there's enough that this becomes worth it, to Jerry's point.
Except for in the situation of Sodom and Gomorrah.
You don't see in the situation of Sodom and Gomorrah, and if it's not there doesn't mean it didn't happen, but you don't see the constant appeal. Maybe he did because that's in his character, but they rejected it, and
But you also
they all rejected it.
and you saw it play out before they were doomed, right? Like they were trying to do all kind of stuff in there, and I'm not talking sexual. I'm talking in general because the fall of Sodom and Gomorrah was not a sexual thing. I want everybody to know that. they were carrying on while lotting them in there. Like they're carrying on. They're seeing that they're carrying on.
Right. Yeah, they didn't have a come to Jesus moment like Nineveh. They outright rejected as a collective, and they didn't even have a minority like Jeremiah in them.
Heck, we also know even in the story of the Israelites in Egypt, there some Egyptians had a come to Jesus moment and bounce with them.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's another thing we have to realize. There was a mixed batch that came out of there.
All right, I'm good. I understand his hope now. I understand the hope, so I'm good. Jerry, you good?
Yeah, I think we still have a variance on a how, but
Okay. Kendrick, we have about 30 minutes. Where were you?
Mine's not gonna last 30 minutes. May not even last 1 minute.
Oh,
I had a
Sharika's here.
question.
You might not know. Sharika's here.
I was
Can't predict nothing.
I
Yeah.
can't.
You're not omniscient.
God knows it's gonna last 1 minute 30
But I
seconds.
am present. Carry on.
So I was thinking about your question last time about God's willingness, Jared.
His willingness.
When you're saying if God is willing to do something,
Yeah.
will he? So we were having that conversation, and then I was reading the in Luke this week about the 10 lepers.
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, they all kind of ran together. So in my head, so I think it was Luke, was it 15, 16, 17? I don't know. Luke Dancer. Luke. Rich man Lazarus. Was it 17?
Yes, 17 from verse
17?
from verse
Okay,
11.
yeah. So it was the fact that um, it was verse 17. I'm sorry, verse 9. Well, I guess we started at
What?
anyway.
Luke what?
17.
Luke 17. And
17?
we can just do 17 through 19. Um, God,
17 is the chapter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
17 is a
yeah,
chapter, and 17 is the verse.
17, yeah, 17 chapter, 17 verse. Um, 17 says, Jesus asked, didn't I heal 10 men? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give glory to God except this foreigner? And Jesus said to the man, stand up and go. Your faith has healed you. So my question is, I'm not sure if we ever discussed this before. They were already healed.
Yes.
One came back, and his faith healed him. Did the
Their
other
faith
9?
healed them.
Huh?
Their faith healed them.
Did their faith heal them as well?
There's almost like a tie into what we talked about before. So if we go back to the beginning, verse 11. Now on the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was traveling along the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance. They stood at a distance and called out, Jesus, Master, have pity on us. When he saw them, he said, go show yourselves to the priest. And they went and were cleansed. It was their faith to keep going that healed them. One came back and gave thanks, and Jesus helped him understand why he was healed.
Why he was healed?
With
Not that.
Not that
Okay.
not him coming back was his healing.
Okay. Because my question was, is faith required in healing?
That's a good question. Required?
Well, because most of the time, not all, but most of the time, Jesus, when someone comes back or he's explained it to them, it always comes back to your faith has made you whole or your faith has healed you. That's like all that kind of stuff. However, Lazarus couldn't have faith because that man was dead, right?
And the guy who was
So I
let
was like,
down
so is it
was not, he didn't have his own faith. It's the faith of someone else who healed him.
okay? Okay, so that's what, go back. So my faith isn't required. Faith required
No,
for healing?
no.
Can you give an example where it wasn't? Because even for Naaman to be healed, he had to have faith.
The, yeah. So based upon well, he had to have faith, and then to your point just now, the little girl, his
So
servant girl, had to have faith
I,
this.
I think
to
there's a
So,
difference
so
between
the
faith and
idea of the
gratitude.
promise.
So I think we shouldn't muddy the two.
I
Because
think
I
Okay.
that
think one of the things he points out with the lepers and with others is some people have the faith and then because they're levels and types of faith, right? We ain't gonna go down that rabbit hole now. But I mean, even with us, there are lots of times we ask God, God, if you just help me with this thing and you believe He'll help you and He'll help you and you're like, and I'll never do this again, but 4 weeks later. So there's a difference between faith and gratitude, I think. And I
I
think
think
that's what that story was trying to demonstrate.
I think the problem I also have here is that to one point is that it's not a lateral thing. The absence of faith doesn't mean the absence of healing.
That's true.
Mhm.
And two, obedience and faith are not the same thing.
But
Agreed.
And
true,
One should come from the other, though.
not necessarily, I don't have to have faith to be obedient.
correct. But if you do
I'm
have
not saying that isn't the case. I'm just saying it's obedience should come from faith or from love, more accurately. But I get you.
or how about this, Jerry? To agree with you, um, when I have faith, it manifests in obedience.
When
Yeah.
I have belief, it could manifest in. So this is remember I started off with y'all telling y'all that my faith is having its problems, um, because the way we talk about faith. And where's Debbie Grant Winter? Because her and I had this conversation the other day that most people don't have faith when times get bad. Like faith goes out the window. Like we just don't know what to do with it. Because the absence of faith doesn't mean the absence of blessing, but the presence of faith does not equal blessing either. And so therefore, there's this conundrum with the connection between faith and healing that really grinds my gears.
Well, like
Mhm.
faith,
Because
like love, is a verb. It's something that you have to do. It's not a feeling. It's not a thought.
I
And that's
think
why sometimes God allows situation because it's the if you the at least the way I see it, my humble opinion. Faith is just like love. Faith is what inspires me to make certain choices, regardless of a potential outcome or not. Love is what inspires me to make certain choices, regardless of a potential outcome or not. So there's a difference between doing something from a place of love as opposed to for love. There's something different doing something from a place of faith as the hope that, well, when this happens, then I'll trust God. Which if you think about it, is the stance most of us take. If God does this, then I will do this. When faith really says, I already do, so I'll do. I already trust Him, so I'll make this choice, regardless of the outcome. Which is like the Hebrew boys, right? He can save us, but if He doesn't, we still ain't bowing down.
so. My point is faith is in so many ways faith is a trust in the capability of something.
yes,
Mhm.
faith is in the individual, not in the outcome.
So
Right.
faith
Right.
Mhm.
is not necessary for healing.
So
So
I just don't know of any instance when somebody got healed and they didn't have.
If my faith
where someone
in
didn't have faith is what you're saying, because there's
my,
people that have been healed where
faith is not
they didn't have faith.
necessary for healing.
that is true, and
I
here's
agree.
why it's true. Um, the Simon the sorcerer was healing people, and
And
they were paying him money. Now,
Pharaoh's people was throwing stuff and things can happen.
but I will say, even with that, people had faith that Simon could heal them. Why they paid him the money? So, what is faith might be the better question.
Peter,
Before we determine
Yeah,
where
but
it
there.
is or isn't, what is faith?
Hold on. Are we saying? But going back to my
In
question
faith
real
or
quick, and
faith
I'm
in
not
God,
leaving
or
you.
faith in
Not
anything,
leaving
in
you,
something?
Sharika. Not leaving you. So I want to make sure. So are we? So are we saying that the person who is being healed has to have faith or doesn't necessarily have to have faith, or the people? Because when I mentioned a couple things, people said, well, no, once again, Lazarus or the daughter of the centurion soldier, whatever, right? It was his faith, right? Not the one that was healed, but it was his faith that
Somebody had faith in
that
the
that
interaction.
was rewarded, and his daughter was healed, right? So I guess that's my.
So are we saying, for instance, and I'm going to use the example before, and this is just for clarity, that if the children of Israel did not believe that God was going to save them, he wouldn't have saved them?
Are we talking about healing, not the act of God, which I don't
No.
know that we can broad stroke it like that.
But the way we're throwing healing around, and we started with Christ and healing and Christ being God, and so we're throwing it around in a way of a godly way, right? And I'm not saying I'm
But
not saying
Sharika, isn't that what was implied earlier with the children of Israel, where because the Bible says because of their unbelief and them being stiff-necked or hard-headed, that's why only two of them made it to. Because
But
10
they,
spies,
but
12 spies went up. Two believed, okay, if God says we can take the land, we can take it. The other 10 were like, nah, we
the
think we will
ones that
because in
I
their
would say
eyes.
I would say yes, Sharika,
no, but the
because I
ones
think
that got into Israel, into Canaan, had no idea what was going on before they left because they weren't
I'm
there.
I'm
Like,
saying
So
I'm saying the people I'm saying to
Actually, they
your
were there.
point
They were kids.
to to
some of them, some
to,
of them.
to your
Some of them.
point to your point, if 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 the children of Israel did not put the blood on their door,
Yes,
They'd all
right,
died.
they would not have made it. Yes,
they would not have made it.
so we all would have been
And by putting the blood on the door was a show of faith.
correct.
so what I'm hearing you say, I want to be very clear. The line of Jesus would have been wiped out if they didn't have faith.
So
Not necessarily.
so
Wait,
we
talk to
we
me
doing
nice.
the micro macro thing. We're doing the micro macro thing, right? And I'm saying that because it was at least 600,000 men, right?
Yeah,
Of the people who left, two
yeah.
made it. You know who Jesus' line came from?
Who?
One of the two.
No, that's not my point. I'm talking about when you talk
So,
about the blood on the door. The
so
blood on the door is where I'm going.
and
I get what you're saying with that one.
but
That's
I'm agreeing with your point in that, I'm making the point, to answer your question rather, that yes, if they all did, if they all did, likely that would be the case.
so if they all did not have faith,
All, yes,
all
or everybody,
everybody,
correct.
we would have been all our whole. We wouldn't have been here. Poof, gone.
But
Maybe,
that's the same thing with Noah. If Noah didn't have
maybe,
faith,
but
we all
But
gone.
Moses would have.
Okay, I just want. I'm making sure I have this foundation. So
If
moving,
100% of them did,
if
not the
100%,
majority.
let's go back to the story of what we were talking about, the people and the healing and those people. So we're saying someone before healing takes place has to believe that it's possible.
So I am wrestling to find an instance where that wasn't the case. I can't say yes definitively, but all the instances that I can think of and pull from right now in the Bible, at least the stories that are told here, appear to have that pattern.
Okay, so are we
There had to be
saying it's
there had
the
to be someone in the
fundamental?
equation. There
So
had to be
faith
someone in the
is
equation.
the faith is a fundamental piece of the possibility of healing. It doesn't guarantee healing, but it's a fundamental piece of the possibility of healing.
So I'll say it this way. In all the instances where somebody was healed, faith played a role. But not everybody who had faith was healed.
Was healed.
Cool.
Yes.
As long
I
as
can say
as
that.
long as we clear that up for the people,
Yes.
because
Not
there's
everybody who had faith was healed. But everybody who was healed, faith played a part.
I agree with that.
Everybody
trying to
that I
think of
can
an
think of,
example.
every story that
So-
I can draw.
So Sarah, okay. So would Sarah being barren, her having a child, be considered healing?
No, she wasn't barren because she was sick. She was barren because she was old.
But she didn't believe that she was
So,
going.
so,
But once again, hold on.
so she.
That's what that goes back to my point. Like it's there has to be someone in the equation. It's not necessarily the person that was healed.
Right. So someone that is untold. There's an untold piece of the puzzle here to say Abraham's like, yeah, I know my chick about to cops to give me one of these. You know, like he had to be able to say that. Or a handsmaid or a servant, somebody in the mix is saying, yo, I know Sarah got at least one in her. And then it happens. Is that what we're saying?
No. I am saying that in the story of Abraham, and I'm just going to recount the story as I remember it, that Abraham believed God's promise.
Right. So somebody in there said that she got one in her. We don't know when, but somebody knows she has one in her.
Or will have one in her.
But Abraham didn't believe God's promise right away.
Regardless of where in the thing, we're in the mix.
Yes, Sharika.
He had it.
He had it. She may have had some of it too.
So can I ask this? So here's my larger question. Excellent.
It was a setup.
It was. It always a setup.
Always a setup. The faith plus the will of God makes the healing.
Maybe. I'm trying to think if there's anything else part of the equation.
I'm not sure that
I think that's probably enough. That's probably
so tell me what's
enough,
what's the equation here?
I don't know. I have to go back and review the. I don't know that there's an equation either.
That makes sense. I mean, for this purpose, I think it makes sense.
I mean, so I can't think of verses necessarily, but I feel like when he says, Lord, what's the verse? The falling on the just and on the unjust. So whether you believe, like he gives blessing or does things as he wills. So yes, there are times where you have faith and the thing goes according to what you believe. But I feel like he does give blessing. He does heal people who don't necessarily believe. So that's like saying today, people who get healed is because they all had faith or somebody connected them and had faith. And I don't necessarily agree with that.
I wasn't saying that is the case for everyone. I'm saying all the recorded evidence in here for the healing, every instance that I could think about in here where it did take place, somebody in the equation had faith.
Yeah.
Now,
right, but I think when Sharika
we can't put God in a box. All I can say is for these stories that are in here, that is the consistent pattern. Could God heal where there is no faith, or where there is no faith that we could detect?
Right.
Because sometimes God has honored the faith of somebody who died.
Right. A promise made to some, or
And so the people in the story think it just happened because God is honoring the faith of someone else. But I can't think of an instance where there wasn't the faith of someone involved in one of these instances.
Y'all believe in the rapture?
No, I watched Kenrick's video about that, and no, I don't.
How did we get here?
Wasn't sure if Sharika was at the wheel. Okay, there she goes.
Do you believe in the rapture? Is that what you just asked?
I think she was grinding.
Like the secret rapture?
No, that's different.
At the wheel.
Oh.
Nah,
I had to use the bathroom.
But Jared was sleeping in the bed, and he was still there. So the other person.
I was not a part of the rapture. I was a part of my bladder having to be released. I think this is an
So where are you going?
Where I was going. I think it's an interesting situation because we oftentimes speak about 1 + 1 = 2. But we don't necessarily speak about 1 + 1 equaling not 2, or 1 + 0 equaling 2. Right? Or 2 - 0 equaling 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people, at least this may be where my mind was when I was having this conversation with my mom, and she probably wasn't even thinking about this during that, was why things falter for some people. I don't know when she said that. But why faith seems to fall apart, because we focus on when it is present And when God's will is in line, then things happen.
Now, I would pause there and go back and say our faith in those instances where it gets shattered is in the outcomes. It's
I
not
under-
so much whether the faith is present, but it's the faith we
It's
have
what it's in.
on in outcomes. Our faith is tied to outcomes.
but we also I shouldn't say this. That sounds bad. I have been
Say
I
what you
have
think.
Worse than anything else you
experienced
said tonight? I'm sure it's not. Go ahead.
no, this one was going to be egregious. I have experienced situations where it would be concluded that faith is an outcome and that's somewhere that you should be. And listening to the right people at the right time who could be prophetess, priestess of God, you would lead to believe in the power of the outcomes.
Yes,
That's the best way I could say it.
that is taught, and that sets people up for heartache. that kind of faith sets people up for heartache because
That's
you
a
can't
fail.
ever really know where God is, what He's doing, and what He's about in any given moment.
But where I struggle, and this is why I think and I said this is my struggle now. You know how I like to call it the cop-out prayer, where it's like I want something, but thy will be done. Wait, hold on. Is that the faith piece or is that the safety net piece?
I think that is the faith because you're putting faith in the person
Yeah.
of God and not in an outcome.
Like I'm trusting that
So
whatever
the
you got
thing is,
happen.
God, I trust you so much that even if I don't get the outcome I'm looking for, whatever you have is going to be
Is
better
it?
for me.
So why am I
And
asking?
that's a trust in a person and not in an outcome.
So why am I asking then? Why am I asking for specific things?
You're asking because this is
Because
what
you're
you
allowed to
want.
ask.
So why
But
don't you
you're understanding that your heart is deceitful and desperately wicked above all things. Who can know
You
it? So
got
I
them
might ask
6
for
million.
something
You got
that
them
ain't
6
actually
million
in my
options.
best interest.
You're asking because he told you to come and ask.
So I would how I reconcile it in my mind, Shrika, when I was having some of those thoughts, um, is I know what I want,
Mm-hmm.
and he knows what you want.
and he knows what I want, but I don't always know what's best for me, and I want that there comes a place in your Christian journey where you want whatever God wants, whatever that is. And I'm using Jesus as an example here. I am sure if he could, he would have passed on the cross, which is what he was saying. Yo, I know what's coming, and I don't want to do this mess right here. I don't want to do it at all. And I'm telling you, I don't want to do it. But I understand that this is your will, and I'm subjecting what I want in favor of what you want. And that's what that prayer is. Now, there are some people who do cop out and leverage those lines as a cop out. You ain't really asking for it. You ain't really, it's like, I'm asked, but I'm not really, I'm not too vested. What Jesus did in that thy will be done is, I don't want to do this. I don't want to. But not so much what I want, but what you want. I value that more. I value what you want more than what I want. So I'm okay with whatever you decide. But I'm going to tell you, I want this.
Correct. And then we also read about the the ungodly judge or whatever you want to call them, and and just understanding. And I think what Jesus was saying in there was like you pester, like you do ask, you constantly ask. Even understanding that even with praying for Thy will be done, right? You continue to ask for the thing that you want until He says yes, no, whatever.
And I think a caveat in there in terms of the asking piece is seen clearly. I love the three Hebrew boys, but if not is not if they said the God we serve is able to do this, but if not, we won't bow down. And so the whole yet not your will. It's a more of a stand of I will continue to be faithful to you even if I don't get what I want. Right? And that's kind of where the posture of that is why it's not really a cop out. Because what a lot of people do is when they don't get their way, they're like, F you,
Get you.
because all I really wanted was this thing from you.
Yeah.
Right?
So is it that you're really interested in a relationship with God or just what you can get from him, right?
Right. And that's why I said the truth was these guys know there's a real possibility they could die today. And they know that the God they serve could do it. But they know that God wants them to serve him more than they want him to live today. So while they want to live today, they want to serve God more. And so they are in that moment saying, yet not thy will, my will be done. But they're like, yo, can you can you save us from this? Because that would be really nice if you could, right? And ideally, I would like to live today. I have things I want to do tomorrow. I have plans for tomorrow. I really would like to do that. Can you hook me up? But if you don't hook me up, I'm not turning my back on you. I'm still going to be faithful to you, and I'm still going to trust that you have my best interests at heart. Even if you allow me to get third-degree burns and end up in the hospital, I'm still going to trust that you have my best interests at heart. And I'm not going to define your concern of your interest in me by what happens in this moment. What happens in this moment is not going to be the definer of how I perceive your interest in me, your care for me, your concern for me, you know. And that's what I gather from those two examples that I then, translate into that conversation with God and asking. And where the faith factor is. Because they didn't like, I have faith God is going to save me from this fire. No, they're like, yeah, I know he could save me. I'm not going to do it just to get saved. That's another example of that is Jesus in the in the wilderness. Yeah, I know I could use the power that God gave me to save this bread, but I am hungry in this moment, and it's been 40 days since I eat, and I'm literally need to eat. But I trust that I should defer what I want to you. I think that's where the thing is. It's deference of my desire in favor of yours is what that is actually doing, and that's not a cop out. That's a surrendering of me and maintaining of the relationship, and that's how I ended up making sense of it. Jesus.
I think this conversation is too high level for me to comprehend, and I don't plan to dig on live. So let's let it go.
Okay. Yeah.
So
I will also add that the same God of time that we're talking about, um, it's not it's not always a single momentary, um, it's not a single momentary moment. And sometimes that whole dynamic between what I want and what he wants, and what he ultimately chooses to give, or when he offers to give me desires of my heart. Um, and I think that balanced it out for me, Sharika. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Balance it out for me, because sometimes I think I want this, and I think I will get this thing out of this. But what I really want is what this thing represents, and it's this thing over here. But I'm looking for it in this thing here, and He gives it to me in a whole nother package, and I'm like, yo, this is what I really wanted. I thought I wanted that, but it was really this thing I wanted that's in here, and it looks completely different. Thank you, God, for giving me that. Sometimes it takes a while to figure that out, because I think I'm getting that in this package. But to get this thing that's underneath that I don't really acknowledge, I can't really identify, and I put my finger on it. I want the thing that's that encases it, but yes, encases it. And so yeah, I've found he does that. He wants to give you desires of your heart, but you don't even really know sometimes what it is, or but you don't really articulate it well and represent it accurately to yourself. So because he could say, "Oh, what you really want is a comfortable ride. You don't really want a Porsche." That's not really what you want. You want a comfortable ride. I'm gonna get this Bentley over here. It's uglier in terms of design, but it's what you really want. I'm gonna get a Civic. It's not as powerful, but it's what you really want. You know what I mean?
I think there's levels to it,
Of course.
and I
It's,
think that works for a new believer.
Hmm.
well, that didn't work for me as a new believer. But that was me with plenty years experience that I saw that.
I shouldn't say that. Maybe it works for people who are different postures. Maybe my posture is incorrect. But again, that's something that we're gonna discuss online. I haven't left. I'm just thirsty.
You know, Jared, that's is interesting. She used the word that she did because just this week we were doing a study on that faith is a posture, and sometimes the way God has to get you to that posture is you asking. You know, he everything is a progression, right? So he might let you start off with your because everybody has a measure of faith with your faith in an outcome, and then he's gonna let you grow and graduate to something else. And I think sometimes he has to. There's things you want that he wants for you, but he knows if he gives it to you, you won't adopt the posture you need to get that thing or to keep that thing. And so he'd be like, I'll have to say no now, just so you'll adopt the right posture. And once you adopt the right posture, because his aim is always isn't just us getting things, it's us keeping it, right?
Yeah, and I learned from my experience that he understands the mashup of people and things that you don't actually see. So I remember when I thought I wanted a car, and I didn't just want a
Mhm.
car. I wanted that Mazda 3. I really wanted that Mazda 3 hatchback, right?
Right.
Um, and I was so consumed with that, I missed the moment of having this time with my mother because I was so consumed with that. I wasn't even thinking about that, right? Now, in hindsight, several years later, I'm like, man, thank you, God, for not giving me that car because if I had that car, I would not have taken the time with my mother. And I value that more than the car. What I really would have wanted, I would be kicking myself and crying all night if I had gotten that car. And that's why I talk about the whole, the real desire of my heart was to have that time to be able to look back and say, I got to say goodbye. Because what I really wanted to do when I came here, I had all the vision of going back and spending time with my mother. And then I left, and the next time I could have seen her was in a box. And he knew that deep down in my heart, I would have liked to have this one last time with her. And he worked it out that she was able to fly and come and put me in this bad car, my car crashed, and all of that, so I could have this time. Because that was really the desire of my heart that I could not have seen in that moment. I just didn't understand why God didn't work it out so I could get a car to drive my mother and have her see me in better conditions. Why you had to send her at a time when um, I sleeping in somebody's basement and we don't have hot water in the middle of the winter because the tank's broken and she can't go up and down the stairs, so she in the cold basement and bathing in cold water. We had to use a wrench to turn the pipe. But that was my living condition when she came. So I wanted the car to at least say, I'm not suffering here, mommy. You come in and things going well. You don't come and see me in this thing. That's what I wanted in that moment. You know what he gave me? Time. He gave me time instead. And I look back and say thank you because I value the time more. The time was greater, my greater desire of my heart than the car. Car said come and go. And I even think about it. I didn't really even want the car. I wanted to show my mother that I was doing well and she didn't care. She wanted time with me. And so that's why I say this is not a new believer thing. Because new believers don't operate in that space.
Mm.
Um, and that's why I was giving it in a high level without the specificity because um, that's the experience that I had that aligns with the verses. Delight yourself in the Lord, He'll give you the desires of your heart. but you don't even know sometimes what that is. I didn't know. We think we know. And that's why the verse also says the heart is deceitful and wicked beyond who can know, except the one who could read hearts. Yeah. But yeah, we could unpack further. I wanted to respond to the new believer part, in case there were new believers on, or people know the new believers.
Yeah.
And you don't, and I'm saying it to say you don't actually see it sometimes until much later. You definitely don't always see it in the moment.
Lauren, how does your boy say it? Life is lived forward but understood backwards, right?
All right, we at 10:04. Let's do some takeaways. We talked about a number of things, and he knew this conversation would happen and allowed it anyway.
Wow.
So, Lauren, when you going home with? Oh, but you are home. What are you taking away from this conversation?
Um, I didn't get anything from the first half.
That's all right.
I'm not trying to be. I was gonna be funny, Jerome, because I was trying, and I was like,
Oh.
um, I mean, the second half reinforced like similar to what you were saying, um, about him knowing how to translate your request. So like you're asking what you're asking. It's almost like that moans and groans, right? So always would translate like he's like he hears your words, but he's reading between the lines. Um, you're like, oh, I want a boyfriend. I want a boyfriend. Not me. I'm just saying very level. Um, and it's like, no, what you want is love. What you want is, I can give you love. I can surround you with people that care about you and prioritize you, and you know, um, but you're thinking like, man, I still don't have X, Y, Z, and it's like, yeah, but I've surrounded you with the thing that you're really asking for. Um, yeah, that was more like I've been reading about like the parable of the sower, and like when we hear these things, or like when we read about like we were talking about like the three Hebrew boys and those kinds of things, like when we hear these stories, sometimes we can't hear it. I don't know how to make it make sense. Like we read what we're reading, we're discussing what we're discussing, but sometimes we're not in the place to fully comprehend what is being said until a situation comes up and it all makes sense.
Hmm.
Um, so right now we may having like different discussions, or like Shrika saying like she's like right now based on which she said we'll delve into later. I mean even me in moments where stuff just wasn't registering. It's not till later. It's like aha, oh, okay, that's what was going on. This is what So I just wait to get better understanding about things that may go over my head or fall on rocky ground, or depending on where I'm at. But that part that you were just talking about kind of stood out.
Hmm. Jerry?
Um, I think just the reminder about trusting him rather than trusting in an outcome. Um, yeah, that was a big reminder.
Cool. Kenneth?
Yeah, that was mine. Um, just a reminder of that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that stood out as well. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of where I landed. I mean, the first conversation at the beginning of the thing of tonight, um, just continues to remind me and of just the process we all go through trying to figure this thing out, and um, and um, how important the forum is that we have. Like, we're blessed to have a forum like this, and where we can kind of wrestle it out and even not land right, and knowing that there's a chance it's going to come up the next season, and we'll we'll wrestle it out again, and we'll all be in different places, and we've
Different
seen it
places.
happen over time. Kind of what Lorraine was talking about. We've seen it happen over time, right? Over the 9 years
Mm-hmm.
we've been doing this,
Yep.
um, and so so it's also that, and the blessing of the family we have, where we can try to wrestle this thing out. So.
Gotcha. Bishop.
I think the biggest thing I took away is just a reminder that in the right group circles, you can properly disagree and still gain from the other person's perspective.
Word.
Yeah, that was it.
Word. But mine was a reminder from the first conversation that your theology informs your praxis, and so I know we talked about the value of God, understanding God's omniscience, but wherever you land on that, whatever theology you develop there is going to inform the way you relate to other people, the way you relate to service of God, you relate to your own relationship with God. And so coming to proper theology is important because of that. And so being able um, to refine your theology in a company of other people who share different perspectives is valuable to me, because of what I believe it impacts down the road for all the things that I do and all the decisions that I make. So thank you guys for indulging me in refining my theology about God's omniscience, and how that interplays with me as an individual and us as a group, as mankind as a whole. Thank you for that. All right, Cliff, you there?
And Cliff left.
All right.
I think you got one takeaway that came in.
I did.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there it is. Blue dot. Sweet. Thank you for that. Um, Eddie says, I am reminded that if you delight yourself in the Lord, He will give you the desires of your heart. Trust the process. Right. Thank you for that, Kenrick. I missed it because I didn't have it up. All right. Anybody want to put the close us out? Lorena Smile says, like, me. I said, me. I'll do it. I will.
That smile said everything but that. But okay.
It did.
Good.
Did
Oh.
anybody else see that with me? Oh, was it
I
supposed to
saw
saw
the
that?
smile. I saw the smile.
We all
I was
saw
about
it.
to
Don't
say.
worry.
I was about to
I
raise
was
my
like,
hand.
please
I
don't
saw the
pick me,
smile. I was
please.
like, oh no, that was Holy
Oh,
Spirit.
it was please don't pick me. Oh, sorry, I missed the word.
I was like,
I
I
laugh
was
when
like,
I'm nervous, so that's all I could do. I was like, oh, please don't pick me.
you were nervous.
Okay, I told y'all about this already.
The Holy Spirit
Okay,
picked you already.
I'm done. Okay. Okay. Lord, thank you for allowing us to all make it here tonight. Thank you for those who were able to be in attendance virtually, as well as those in our group today. Be with those who are missing today. Um, Pray that you will be with what we've heard today and help us to continue to process what we've talked about. And please enlighten us in areas that we may have missed certain things, Lord. And I pray that you will continue to bless us and be with us as we continue to learn more about you. In Jesus' name I do pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
And that's it for today. What's that? Season 10, episode 5. We're here every first and third Friday. If you don't have a copy of the reading plan, download it from the App Store, put it on your device, read along with us, then bring any questions you might have, any musings you might have, anything that blessed you, anything that encouraged you this week or in the time we're apart, and read with us and follow along with our conversations. And invite someone to join us. And if you would like to be a part of the conversation in real time, shoot us an email at info@waterforthethirsty.com and we can make sure to send you the link so you can join in. We have a couple more spaces, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world, we'd be glad to have you. And we welcome all the thoughts from everywhere. We are on again on the first Friday in November, which is November the 3rd. So see you then.
Yes,
Until
sir.
then,
Drink up.
drink up.
Drink up.
We out later.